This is the final demo of the different panes that we're going to be looking at. We're going to look at the HBox and the VBox in one program right now. At the top of the program, we have the usual imports that are required, so we won't go through them. And then we know we're going to extend the application in JavaFX, and we know we have to override the start method. So all of that you're used to seeing. Let's go down and look at the new stuff. Well, we are going to use three different kinds of panes actually. In addition to the HBox pane and the VBox pane that we really want to demo in this particular demonstration, we're also going to use a border pane just as a convenient way to have a place to put each of those other panes. Because remember, panes can go inside of other panes. So we start by creating a pane called pane, and this is a border pane, and we're going to then drop into the top section of our pane the HBox, which you see right here, and the VBox, which you see right here, will go in the left portion of our border pane. Now, of course, these two things, get HBox and get VBox, are contrived. They're methods that the author made specifically for this demo. So we'll have a look at those in just a moment. Let's look at the rest of the code before we go there. The rest of the code in this area is what you're used to seeing anyway. We basically drop a pane into a scene. We give a title for the stage. We drop the scene into the stage, and then we show the stage. So that's, in a very condensed, brief synopsis, what this program does. But of course, there's a lot more than meets the eye to get HBox and get VBox, so we need to look at those two methods now in turn. Well, get HBox simply returns an HBox, as you can see. That's the last line of that block of code. But it returns an HBox that's already been populated with a number of different children. In fact, it contains 3 children altogether, 2 of which are buttons, labeled buttons, and 1 of which is an image, or actually an image view. Now recall the behavior of an HBox. What it does is the first child will go into the furthest left, the next child will go to the right of that, and the next child to the right of the previous child. So that's what's going to happen with the 3 children that are added to this HBox. Let's go through the code a line at a time. So the first thing we do here is we actually create the HBox and call it HBox, and we have a gap of 15 pixels between every item that goes into the HBox. That's going to be a gap between individual items, a horizontal gap. The next thing we do is set padding for the entire HBox. So when we drop it into the border pane, this is the space that will occur around it as it's inserted into the border pane. So that's 15 pixels on the top, left, right, and bottom of our HBox. Here we set the style for the HBox. So we're going to make a background color of gold for our horizontal box or HBox. Then we begin to put our children in it. So we do an HBox get children to produce the observable list, which we then can use the add method on. To the HBox as our first child, we add a new button with the label computer science on it. The next child is the same, except the label on this button is chemistry. And then finally, we create an image view. So we say image view, and we name it image view equals new image view, and then we say new image, and it's actually the same picture of the US flag that we saw in one of the earlier demos. We then drop that into our HBox as the next and last child by using the getChildren.add method, and there it is, image view as our last child. Now on the VBox, similar story. We have this time a gap of 15, but it's a vertical gap between items that are put in this VBox now. Remember, the VBox will show its first child at the top, the second child under that, third child under the second child, and so on. We have slightly different insets for the border around, or the padding around our VBox. We're going to make it 15 on the top, but only 5 on the left, right, and bottom. The first child we add to our VBox, which remember is going to be at the top of the VBox, and it's a label that says courses. And then for the rest of the children, what we do is we make an array of labels called courses, and here they all are. So the first is CSCI 1301, CSCI 1302, CSCI 2410, and finally CSCI 3720. So that's an array of 4 labels, and what we do now is we use that type of for loop that we've seen a number of times in some of these demos, where it iterates through all the elements of an array, and in this case the name course will reflect each value as it iterates through the array. So for every course in that array called courses, we're going to set a margin in the VBox for the course with using insets of 0, 0, 0, and 15. And then we're going to actually add the course to the VBox in this line here. And of course we iterate through every course specified by the 4 labels that you see here. So what we should see happening then is that the first label way back here, courses, will head the VBox, and it'll be the first child. The second child under that will be the label that says CSCI 1301, and then this next label will be under that, and this label will be under that, and finally at the bottom of our VBox this final label will appear here. Now of course this stuff at the bottom, we know we don't need that in Eclipse, so let's just throw that away. So we should be able to go ahead and run this now. So here we go, and it has run, and this is the output that we get from it. You recall that the H box was set with a background of gold, so it's very clear where the H box is, where this gold area is, and we had a certain gap between each of the items in the H box reflected by the spaces that you see here. We had a certain border around the entire H box within the top section of our border pane, which we're using here. Recall in the border pane we dropped our H box into the top section of the border pane, and we dropped our V box into the left section of the border pane. Notice that this goes all the way down to the bottom. Now why is that? It's because we didn't put anything in the bottom of our border pane. It's not quite so obvious that this section goes all the way over to this edge here, because we also did not put anything in the center area nor in the right area. So both of those have disappeared completely, and this entire area that you're looking at is now defined to be the left area of our border pane, and that's the area where we've dropped our VBox. So you can see our VBox is sitting here, and it has the label courses and then a whole bunch of individual courses. Notice that the insets used for the padding are different for courses for this label as opposed to all of these labels. You can see that down here in the source code, where within the for loop we use this for padding, and outside the for loop, which would apply to just this label right here that says courses, we are instead using this insets for the padding. And that is why this label is offset differently than the rest of the labels. So H box up here, left to right, a V box over here, top to bottom. And the whole thing, of course, is illustrating again the border pane, where we have an item in the top, and the left we haven't used the center or the right or the bottom.